Hello, and welcome to another episode of Component Carousel. Thank you so much for being here. Whoa, and just as we went live, we had a follow. Thank you so much, Sharoon, for the follow. Yeah, we have another great episode. With me today is Steph Eckles. Steph, how are you doing?
Pretty swell, thanks.
Awesome. So glad to have you. Um, you have been all over my Twitter feed, all over everything that I'm like reading about. Every time I turn around, you have a new site launched. You have small CSS up. I think I first found you through your fantastic work with, and I'm gonna admit I totally am blanking on the name of it, but it's the CSS site with all the examples and the grid with the skew. What's the name of that one?
The modern CSS
Modern
dev.
CSS. Thank you. So I totally blanked on it. I had it 5 minutes ago, didn't have it right now. But I just remember seeing Chris Coyer go like, "This is excellent," and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty high praise. I gotta go check it out." And it absolutely was. And since then, you've just been putting out fantastic content for the community. You're doing your own streaming here on Twitch, so make sure we drop Steph's Twitch handle. I think I'm saying that right. In the chat to make sure that you are absolutely following her. But you want to tell the chat a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you enjoy, what you've been up to.
Sure. Yeah, so I am a front end focused software engineer, which I've only had the software engineer title since October, but been doing front end stuff for a decade and a half at this point, basically. And always front end focused. But yeah, the pandemic kind of caused me to use the hibernation to, yes, spin up way too many side projects. So, and I use the term hibernation definitely loosely. I'm a mom, I have two little kids. And so, yeah, but yeah, it's been a fun creative outlet. I've always enjoyed programming for that, like instant gratification. And now I just having a problem following all the rabbits instead of picking a select few. So anyway, it's been fun. I've enjoyed the education, doing the Twitch streaming. I'm also an egghead instructor and certainly writing
And
in a few
style
different places.
stage, like you are
Yep.
prolific with your projects. I'm actually gonna say hi to a couple of people in chat and then bring up your website. So we've got Ben D. Myers in chat. Welcome, Ben. Thanks for being here. Just saw you drop into our Discord. We have that link down there in at the bottom footer thing. I don't know. I just made this up. I don't have a good sense of the room yet, so I'm pointing in wrong directions. But Ben, great to have you. Wei, thank you for coming through. Will, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Will says, "What up, Stephanie?" And we have
Hey, Will.
Nicola. Thank you for being here of the Chakra UI team. So awesome. Let's transition over to desktop and to people. Still getting the hang of this new setup. Here we go. And I made this transition shorter so it doesn't last for like 10 seconds and it's way too long. So that was a bit better, a bit more snappy. So I just wanted to show your personal site, which I'm going to drop. I love the URL. Think, do, be, create. So good. But yeah,
Yes.
Style Stage, which is kind of a spiritual successor to CSS Zen Garden, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just a great project that a lot of people have contributed to. I love the way that you kind of set up this area to play in, right? Like it's like here's the general boundaries. Be creative, go for it, have fun, and people have made some really cool things. Let me where here you go. No, that's that one. Nope, not that one. Here we go. So like Dot Grid, Lobster Party by Andy Bell. Yeah,
Classic.
there's just so many good ones in here. Let me see. Featured stylist dot grid. Yeah. So
Yeah, we have over 50 styles. Oh,
is this
you
one a
know
little
what? I was
busted?
messing with it last night.
I
That'd
gotcha.
be
No
cool if I
worries.
broke it.
We're gonna cut this out. Don't worry. We're
Yeah.
gonna edit this. Yeah, we're gonna skip right past that one. No, yeah. So, uh, how does this work?
Yeah, so for those who weren't around for Zen
Right.
Garden or don't remember it, the idea is that if you become a contributor, you use the same HTML as everyone else, and you are only submitting a style sheet. So you don't get to modify the HTML either or add any scripting of any kind. So you're just submitting your style sheet. And I wanted to bring this forward as another opportunity because while I love things like CodePen, where you get this kind of focused experience, um, you're usually focusing on something small. And it felt like outside of maybe building your portfolio, we were missing some opportunities to allow folks to practice whole page design. And, I'm not a designer. Um, I pretend to be. And,
I do too.
but more so than that, it also was an opportunity to really promote modern CSS and what we have available and see what things we can do since Zen Garden stopped taking submissions in, like, I believe it's 2013. So definitely an homage to Zen Garden, fully credited on the homepage. But yeah, there's over 50 styles now. And it's not a beauty
Awesome.
contest. It's just simply an opportunity for you to practice some of these skills and share them. And what's been cool is some of the folks with a little more junior experience, it's also been their first opportunity to submit a pull request. So, kind of these
Oh, that's awesome.
extra environmental things that you also might not get until you join a team. So,
Right. No, that's great. Yeah. So many like that was the best part about CSS and Garden was that was that variety of things, right? Just like the
mhm.
like as you can kind of see just from scrolling through here, chat. Like there's this very different takes on the same content. It just yeah, so great stuff. Thank you for putting this together. So yeah, we could honestly go down probably like another 20 minutes to 30 minutes of just kind of checking through your things. 11T rocks, awesome 11T resource. I still haven't spun up like a full like real 11T site, but I have dug through this and this seems really helpful. Small CSS you built on stream with Colby Fayok. Colby has a fantastic stream. Another great one to watch out for. But yeah, you put together so many awesome resources, and I think the most the one that I've enjoyed the most has been modern CSS. This has been very helpful for me personally. So highly recommend. Oh, and here it is. This is a hell of a series by Stephanie Eckles. I just got demonetized, but I'm happy to read that out because that is a Chris Coyer on his foul mouth. But it's true. It's excellent. A bunch of fantastic modern CSS solutions for old CSS problems. Love it. But today we're working on something a bit different, right? We're doing something pretty cool today. What are we doing
Indeed.
today, Steph? We've got
So
yeah,
we're on theme, which you can already see from switching to that tab. But as I already mentioned, I'm not really a designer. So instead, we're going to focus on learning some new CSS properties, modern CSS properties, and how those kind of work. And the most of them you can start using right away. The one that we're going to do that you have to be more cautious with is container queries. And we're doing that because it's kind of the theme of your show, Alex, to kind of do something a little bit wacky. And right now that's a little bit wacky. So we'll take the opportunity.
the
But
the theme of the show is it should break in most browsers. It the theme of the show is it works on my machine, and that's about it. That's
yes.
where the show ends. Um, Ben says he means to submit a stage theme at some point. 11T, yeah. So lots of great stuff from Steph. And hello, Abracadabra. Got some great people coming through. Yeah. So you told me first to make this work at all, I need to go into my Chrome settings, right?
Yeah, and specifically Chrome Canary. So hopefully you got that one downloaded. But
Let me
yeah, and
see.
it's actually the Chrome flags is the
Right.
place to
So
go. Yep.
right here,
Yes.
enabled. So that
Yep.
that should be we should be good to go with that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So
And since
yeah.
we haven't added any, basically the styles that are here right now are stuff that gives us a decent starting point for the theme, but is stuff we don't want to focus on too much, just so we can get to the other
No, I
items.
appreciate it.
But
Yeah, 'cause the boilerplate can take some time to set up sometimes. I just want to say this is really cool how you did this. Just how is
yeah,
that
we can
working?
definitely point out a few of the features here.
Yeah.
I'm if you go to the CSS section
Okay.
and just kind of at the top of that initial block that you have there, Yeah, so we're just doing a super light reset. Since we're in CodePen, the only thing we have turned on is auto prefixer. We're not using one of their resets, just for anybody that's curious. Um, and I've just given us a few CSS variables just for colors for the purposes of this component. So nothing crazy there.
Cool.
Little bit of text styling, but then so yeah, that block on line 31 approximately. Um, we're using WebKit text stroke and
Cool.
also the necessary properties for text gradient. So um, for those to work, we need to do a background clip of text, as you have highlighted there,
Yep.
and set our text fill color to transparent. And with those two things in place, anything that you use for a background, which kind of the popular reason to do this is to make gradient text,
Right.
will be clipped to the text that is present in that element.
Gotcha. So if like we nuke that, it'll just kind of go all over, right? So
Yeah.
by bringing that in, it clips the background to just what the text is. Very cool. That's a excellent style. Like you say, you're not a designer, but that's pretty cool. And of course, it's not coming back now that I brought it back.
And the interesting thing about those is they are in this weird state of sort of permanently prefixed. So they'll actually work in all browsers at this point, but they do require that WebKit prefix. So
I
interesting little detail there.
at a different time. I don't want to hold this up, but I always wonder why some things are like that. Where it seems like we've had this for a while and it works at different places. Why is it just like that? But I don't know. If you know or anyone knows, we can drop it in the comments or something. But awesome. So what else have we got going on?
Yeah, so after that, I mostly just wanted to give us a few, just our essentially the background styles for our we've got a list set up. So we're going to be building up cards is where we're going with this. And those cards are going to be able to rearrange themselves intelligently based on the space that they uniquely have.
Cool.
So that's where we're headed with this. So yeah, it's just our essential styles here. You can see our images are still need
All over the
contained.
place, but yeah, all good.
Yeah. And also thanks for everyone who may have seen my tweet and responded. I am not familiar with heavy
Wait, these
metal
aren't your favorite albums, Steph. I
bands,
brought you on
so
only under the notion that you were a metal expert and you could tell me the
yeah,
nine
yeah.
top albums. No,
I would have done a lot better with hip hop. So
there you go. Nice. We'll try to work that into a future theme.
yeah. So anyway, these are yeah, yeah. So I guess the one trick I wanted to point out here, which we'll see in better use a little bit later,
Cool.
line 51 ish,
Okay.
where we're setting the width for the list. This is my new favorite way to do a container. So I like to share about it because I love it. So we're using, instead of setting a width and a max width and a min width and all of those things,
Yeah.
we're instead using the min CSS function. So some of you may have noticed we are actually using SAS processing, but this min function is a native CSS function. And what's happening in that little declaration there is that based on the computed styles, it will either choose that 120 CH or it will choose 100% minus 4 rem. So in other words, it won't trigger overflow as you shrink down, because as you shrink down and it hits below that 120, it will hit that 100%. Now, currently our images are throwing this off
Yeah.
because we haven't
I'm
contained
able to
them.
see it
But
here, right? Like so. Yeah. So
mhm,
as soon as it hits there, that's at 100 minus the 4 rem, and that's why we have this margin here. Is that right?
yes, correct.
Got it.
Yep. So we'll see that effect
That's
happening a little more
handy.
usefully for us as we build it up.
Yeah, because
But
I'm still doing the max width, min width. Like, yeah, that's a fantastic little one-liner trick. Thank you for that. That's cool.
yes, and it is decently supported. It's over 90%, um, at least last time I checked. So that will continue to improve over the next
Awesome.
couple months.
Cool. I mean,
Yeah, but okay.
after
So
this
I think
episode, it's gonna take off. People are gonna be yeah. The support will go through the roof. Don't worry about it.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm kind of scanning through. If you see anything else you'd like me to explain, but otherwise, I think
Yeah,
there's
Chad, if
nothing
you got any
too
questions,
unique
drop them
going
in.
on.
and we could always
Oh yeah,
double back. But I think no, for the most part, it seems pretty straightforward. I'll check out the HTML. Like you said, it's a list, right? So I think for the most part,
it's a list.
yeah, think we're good to go there. I think, hey, Aaron, welcome, and B1 Mind, welcome. Yeah, for the most part, I think we're good to go. So where do we want
All
to start
right.
off?
Yeah, so we're gonna do a lot of our styling. Alex, up to you if you want to keep continuing with the, SAS format or break it out into new unique styles. Either way, but um,
So that's works
the
for me.
first
Yeah.
thing we the first thing we want to do is add a few styles to our unordered list.
Okay.
So
Right here on
I'm
47.
not sure if
Cool.
I already had yeah, there is a definition there. Yeah. So we're going to update that and go ahead and give it a display of grid
Okay.
and a gap value. I tend to use rims for like everything, so I did 2 rims
Cool. Yeah, I
as
love
a starting
rims.
point. Yeah. Now, it's not going to have done much. You saw the gap kind of jump in there.
Yeah.
If you haven't had a chance to play with grid too much, you might think that almost nothing happened. And versus Flexbox, grid is going to default to row alignment. So it's going to kind of appear with no change because it essentially looks like we still have what we might also think of as block
Right.
element display. So we haven't done too much. We've just kind of set our first initial step to continue forward. Now, our next step is to actually get these cards under control. So what we want to do is set a initial baseline style for these. This is going to be the style that, importantly, works when container queries are not available.
Okay.
So a
So I'll
cool
fall back.
thing about thinking towards using container queries is that they're pretty simple to progressively enhance. Um, First, design the thing that you are okay with most people seeing, and then add container queries.
Cool.
So that way you won't break an experience for someone who doesn't have Chrome Canary with the experiment turned on, or doesn't break for folks in the next few months when that eventually lands in browsers. But you get to provide this slightly better experience when it is supported.
So,
So yeah, so we're gonna set that baseline experience for our list items, which are our card elements.
right.
Um, I should quick mention I'm just using element selectors today because we have such a contained
Yeah.
experience. I tend to do that when I have really focused things and I'm not worried about like sharing it or it's not this grand website.
Makes sense.
So anyway, that's just a quick note on that. But so yeah, so for our list item, that's just simply in this case our card, and we've already
Cool.
scoped it because we're in SAS and we've scoped it to our food menu, so it does have some level of scoping of what it's being applied to.
Nice.
Cool. So we kind of only had yeah, those background styles. So what we're going to do is we're also going to make this a grid item. So just a display of grid. And our
Cool.
initial goal for these cards is that we want to end up with the album cover and the number kind of left aligned on the card, and then the text right aligned on the
Cool.
card, or at least in the remaining space to the right. So for something like this, I tend to reach for grid template areas. Um, they're really handy because we can actually name what we want those different sections to be. So it becomes very readable what you're doing with the layout. So you can go ahead and populate grid template areas as our property.
Great. And yeah, grid template areas are fantastic. Honestly, they make things more intuitive to me, at least.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I one of the reasons I shied away from grid for quite some time is I was mostly only encountering materials that were made it seem like you had to count grid rows and grid columns, and I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and the
so
spans
this is
can
one of those
sometimes
things
be
that,
like unintuitive. Like if you don't know exactly what
yeah,
the span means, you can sometimes just kind of be like, is it 0? Is it 1? And it
yeah,
gets a little funny. But if you're just saying like header, footer, body, you're like, that's the whole
yeah,
game. I understand that.
exactly. So that's what we're gonna do. Like, there's no reason to be more clever than we have to be. Basically, let's be
Love it.
clear. So we're going to create grid template areas that will enable us to have 2 rows and 2 columns. It's going to be the technical output here.
Cool.
So on our first row, which these go in double quotes. We're going to name our row, our first column cover, and our second column title.
Cool.
And then on a second row, which, yep, it's I got confused on this for a long time. I kept trying to put a comma between these. There's no comma. And they're just pairs of, or not pairs, but groups of strings within double quotes.
It's a CSV without the C, basically. It's just separated values, right? It's like, but I guess space separated values. I don't know. Cool.
So we're going to do something kind of unique, and we're going to use the cover title again, because ultimately that's going to span both rows. And actually, instead of the additional title, we're going to name that description.
Cool.
So Cool. All so right. Now what this has done, if you noticed in our preview, is it has automatically rearranged our items. We happen to have 4 items. And so it's jumped those into those new grid template areas. Yeah, thank you. That will definitely help. Just based on DOM order. So it's trying to intelligently place those for us. So we don't have the names exposed there, but you can see they've jumped into those 4 grid areas that we've enabled. So our next step is to be more explicit about defining those elements to their areas.
Cool.
So we're going to kind of just go through. And like I said, the cover image and the number are going to share a space. So those elements are our image and our span, and we'll need to create a new rule for those.
Okay. So the image needs a new rule?
Yep, the image and the span. So you can define them together.
I see a span here. Is that kind of... Okay, cool.
We can just go ahead and group them, yeah. Yeah, because we're just going to give them the one rule, which is grid area, grid-area, and give them cover. And this time it's not quoted.
Yeah, I always find that interesting. That just coming from JavaScript, that feels like a going from like a string to a variable. And you're just like, these are different. I don't know, but yeah. I don't know. I see James Quick in the chat. Welcome, sir. Welcome. Viola, thanks for coming through. Got some great people here. Cool. So we gave the image and the span cover, and check that out. Just like that.
Yeah. So we've told them to share the same grid area. We haven't given it any other placement instructions. So based on a combination of DOM order and the default grid algorithm, it's jumped up into the top left, and it's on top of the image because it follows the image in DOM order. So that's already taken care of for us, which is what we want. And we could get a little bit fancy with it. I originally had on the span a transform to kind of nudge it outside of the box. So we can add that or we can skip it. But
yeah, let's go for it.
All right, so,
right here on the span?
So within the span rule by itself. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Translate.
And, yep, translate and negative 25% for both values.
Is that going to work? My syntax right? Looks like it.
There we go.
Cool.
And I think that it's thrown off a little bit because we haven't finished placing the other items, so it's throwing off the overall placement.
The 25%
let's finish
of it,
assigning.
Right? Cool.
Yeah, let's finish assigning the other items. So we need to create a rule for our H3.
All right. Where would you like to do that?
You can be after the image and span because the rule is going to be to define its grid area. Yeah.
And that's title. Cool.
And then last but not least, our paragraph to assign that to the description grid area.
Cool. All right, nice. So everything has a home. We're still getting a little overflow, but we're...
Yeah. So let's deal with our image so we can fix some of this overflow business. Go ahead and create a rule for the image.
Cool.
Anywhere you'd like in there. Okay, so now we're going to, usually when we do like a reset, we tend to do like a max width of 100%. But we're going to use our grid itself to constrain this image.
Cool.
So we're just going to give it a width of 100% because ultimately we want it to fill whatever we allot it in our grid.
Got it.
So that's already given us a little bit of an improvement there.
Yeah, much improved.
But we can do better. We can use another new property of aspect ratio. and we're going to set that to 1. And the reason is, if you scroll down to the tool, oh no, I took the tool image out. But either way, we're going to basically ensure that whatever images get thrown in here. So say we make this a component in Prismic or something, and we're allowing people to throw images at it, that they
Right.
always get cropped down to a square. Now with just those two properties, if we did have a rectangle image, which I did, and then I swapped it, it would not quite be working as we want it to,
Okay.
or it would be squished.
I wasn't sure if, okay, got it. So it's not cropping it off. It's just saying, all right, this landscape picture is now smushed together. It's not chopping
Yeah.
off the edges. Got it.
Yep. And so we want to add one more property to make sure that it stays within that allotted space.
Cool.
So we're going to add object fit, object-fit, yep, and assign it cover. So
Awesome.
now this is a property that's been around quite a while, but I have found that it's lesser known. It essentially makes the image act as its own container. And the effect is similar to if you use a background image of cover. So in other words, it's not going to break out of its constrained area. If we were to change, so if you change like aspect ratio to like 16:9 or something like that.
How do we do that? Is that 16x9 or is it :9?
Good question. It's actually a slash forward slash.
Not what I had guessed. That's so
There you
cool
go.
though.
So you
I
can
didn't
see
realize
that
aspect
thanks
ratio was
to
ready. Or like, is
yeah,
it just
yeah.
Chrome or?
It is. We can double check can I use, but I think it's all the latest browsers should now have it because Safari just added it.
Whoa. Okay. Oh, that was the other one.
In 14 or 15, or maybe it's coming in 15.
My daily driver's
that
IE,
actually,
so no.
yeah.
Safari still doesn't have it.
I know it's in 15, but I don't think that's been released besides technical preview. So
Got it. Okay, cool.
Anyway,
Still,
really
I
close
mean,
to having
that's
it.
still great. I mean, like you said, with progressive enhancement, you know, like set it up so it's still going to look good on Safari, and then like optimize for incredible on Chrome and whatnot. So that's great.
Yep. So without our object fit cover, that would have looked squished. So that's the benefit of those properties used together.
Let's just real quick, 16:9. Not going to waste all the time, but yep, perfect. Cool. All right.
Cool. So we're getting closer on what we want to do here. Now the other thing we haven't quite done, we've assigned our grid areas. That's what we've just accomplished. And the other benefit of that is as we reconfigure our cards, we can now just do that by changing the grid template areas by name. We don't have to actually worry about moving those elements. And that's might make a little more sense when we actually get to doing it.
Okay.
But that was another reason for doing that. Yeah, it'll make it just a lot more simple.
Awesome.
So we want to give these just a little more structure. So since we're using grid template areas to define how many columns and how many rows, we need to also be able to define, in this case, how large the columns are. So right now they're kind of assuming how much space they can take based on that image size. You can kind of see it affecting it as you look across the different ones. And so to resolve that and be more explicit about it, for our list element, we're going to add grid auto columns. And we're going to use our min function. So it's, and then in parentheses, the first option is going to be 200 pixels. And the second option is going to be 30%.
Cool.
And then the second value for that property is going to be 1FR. So outside of the minimum function.
I'm like, wait, this can take 3 values? No, okay.
It can.
the min? Oh, what's the third one? Is it just another?
So, for example, you could also throw a viewport width unit at it as a reasonable way to do it.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah. So based on our viewport size or container size, it's going to choose one of those values. So you can see it immediately made everything a little more consistent. Yeah.
That's already.
We still have our number just a little bit out of control. Let's resolve that by going into the rule for the span.
Okay. Where did I put that?
I think that was down below. It kind of got pushed down.
There it is. Cool.
Yeah. And we'll give that a property of place self, and we're going to say start. I hope that
So
resolves it.
that applies
There
to
we go.
grid, right? So that's a grid property.
Correct.
Cool.
So a few interesting things are going on with that. We, if you recall, we put both the span and the image into the same grid cell by use of our named grid area of cover. And so now it's relative to just that square. And so place self is a shorthand for both align and justify. And so we could use place self in and it would go to
Right.
the diagonal opposite corner, or we could use the individual properties of justify self or align self to individually move it to different
And,
access points.
and it's also like a quick way to do centering too, right? I've
Yes.
seen it used as that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of chat going on that I'm so into this that I'm completely being a bad host in this regard. Marble Ray said Safari just added it. No, so it won't be usable for another 3 years. Safari won't push out updates. See that Reddit post? No. Yeah, it's true. Unfortunately, a lot of bright minds working there. Yeah, Safari's. I'm betting on Safari. It's gonna get better. I have full confidence, and we need it too. We need Firefox and Safari. We can't just have everything turn into Chrome. I'm not gonna like that future. B1 Mind says at least the new Safari team looks promising. Yep, absolutely. There's hope. We just have to give it time. Awesome. Love to see the optimism in their chat. Cool. So this is looking so much better already, Steph. Are we
Yeah. So
done?
the last thing we can do, just for a little bit of um, to create the breathing room that we need, we could do two things. We could do, because I'm realizing that the way I did it before I could change, but in order for it to work across our future configurations, we're going to add some padding for our H3 and paragraph, just so we can do it one time and it applies to our future variations
Cool.
to give it some space within where it's currently located. So a rule for both the H3 and the paragraph, and we'll
Cool.
just give it a padding of 1 rem. And then the last thing that I missed earlier was for our list item, just setting in align items to center. So for the main list item.
And
Cool.
that's just future proofing, right?
So
Like I shouldn't see any
yeah,
change really. Cool.
yeah. So I mean, honestly, like this is fine, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not an amazing design, but it's a functional design.
Yeah.
We, again, in a CMS scenario, we've decently handled for, whatever kind of content might come in here, so, it's definitely a good solid baseline in my view.
Absolutely. And honestly, I think yeah, like using grid for this is perfect. I think my favorite part of a grid that you just well, not my favorite part of all of grid, but one thing I really love about grid is what you did with the numbers, just easily stacking things without having to defer to position absolute and figuring it out from there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of the way that you would do that otherwise. But grid makes stacking images and text and like doing like cool magazine layouts so much easier than and easily responsive. And I love what you said about the grid template areas, how that's going to be real easy to swap elements around with the grid template areas, where it would be so much harder if you're doing like swapping the old way, or just with Flexbox, right? Like you have to manage a lot of things and the mental load is going to be pretty high, where naming things is going to be much easier. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of, I like showing things in this way where we use as minimal HTML as possible. Now, a little bit of future proofing thing, we're not going to do it, but just to mention it, that you might want to do for this type of arrangement is you might want to go ahead and put your H3 and paragraph in their own, like an extra div. It just would make it a little bit easier to align them and also
Okay.
more future proof in case you start to get more content there, right? Like if you needed more paragraphs or you needed a link in there,
Right.
if you kept it as it is right now, you'd have to revisit and add another grid row column to be able to handle an additional element. So,
Yeah, that's a good point.
um, just a point of note.
Great. And Jamie came
But
in. Hey,
cool.
Jamie, good to see you. All right, what's up next?
Cool. All right. So we have styled our cards with CSS Grid. So we're good with that
Checking it off.
bullet point.
I'm staying up to date on the checkbox that should update any second. There it goes. Cool. All right, nice.
Yeah. All
Creating
right.
menu grid.
So Alex, as your project manager, I said this is great, but I want to make more use of our space that we have available, and I want these to show up in a grid.
Cool.
So I want a 3 across grid for our cards. And you say that's great.
But as my project manager, I'm gonna have you tell me how to do this. So
well, I suppose that's okay. So that's great. We know that we're gonna hit some maybe a little bit too squishy with our current like arrangement of things though. Like you kind of saw it as you shrunk down Claire to quote unquote mobile size, right? We get a little squishy.
Yeah.
We get a little extra space around things.
Above and below.
Again, it's fine. Like it's legible. Somebody can still like accomplish reading the menu. But let's see how it plays out when we turn it into a grid.
Awesome.
So back up under our main unordered list.
In the CSS still, right? Yeah. We're not really touching the HTML, right? We don't need to. This is pretty much done.
Quite yet.
Okay, cool.
Yep, for now.
All right. Cool. Unordered list.
Back in our unordered list, we've already defined it as a grid. So now we're also going to add grid template columns in this location. And we're going to use my absolute most favorite trick of grid, the one that got me to finally actually use grid. And we're going to use a series of grid specific functions that will let us create a grid that automatically wraps and accommodates its contents.
Cool.
Which is pretty cool. So Alex, are you familiar with this trick, the repeat autofill trick?
I'm familiar with repeat. The we'll see. I'll be honest and let you know if I'm not. All right. So
perfect.
We'll see.
No problem. So we're going to start out this definition with the repeat function. Now this is a grid specific function. So in other words, you can't use it outside of grid related properties. But whatever we define in here will get repeated, in this case, for every column that gets generated in our grid. On a most essential level, you could be very explicit and say repeat 3 times, comma, and then some value.
Right.
So, but we want to get a little more future friendly with it, a little more accommodating to our content.
Okay.
So we're going to pass it the unique keyword of autofill. It's auto-fill. And it's hard to explain, so we'll revisit it and see what it does in a minute.
Okay.
And then for our definition of what kind of value those should take on, this is going to get a little bit tricky, but we're going to do min max, which is 1, no space or dash for that. Yep, another function.
Cool.
And then, so in here we pass a minimum value that is allowed for our column width and a maximum value. We're going to take that one baby step further. We're going to use our min function one more time.
Oh.
So inside of there.
Whoa.
And we're going to allow it to either be 100% or 30ch.
Character, right?
By the way, I've used ch a couple times. For those that aren't familiar, that's going to map to approximately the width of the 0 character in whatever the inherited font is.
Cool.
At the point of that declaration. So right now it is the 1rem system UI font that we're inheriting this width from. So that takes care of our min allowed width. So yeah, our parentheses get a little tricky to follow.
Yeah, all good. I think
and the max allowed value is going to be 1FR.
Cool.
We used 1FR earlier, but I think we skipped explaining it. That's going to be a fractional unit. So if you just used FR, it's going to equally share space for all grid items that use 1FR. So yeah, you already saw how that jumped into place.
Yeah.
Yeah, play with that.
Oh, wow. That is dead simple. I mean, like, you know, I'm not going to remember this offhand, but just that one line doing 3 columns like that That's fantastic. We still have the margin there, so it's not like encroaching. We still have the gap thanks to our gap 2 rem, and it's automatically breaking down. That's fantastic stuff. I definitely did not like. I'm familiar with these properties, but knowing like what autofill or what min-max does, and then being able to use them like this, two different things entirely. I did not know uh, this slick trick. Wow, that's wonderful.
Super handy.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
use it on literally everything.
That's excellent.
It is the first trick listed on smallcss.dev if anybody wants to play with that.
Got it.
And
So
yeah, I'm using it for that
is
grid.
that at work here too?
Oh
Is
yeah.
that there you go. That's perfect. Cool.
um, so we've accomplished the initial ask, but you can see what I mentioned before we did that kind of at work, where we're getting kind of some undesirable space. Our grid columns are for the individual cards is working, but it's just a little subpar,
Right.
yeah, especially at these
Yeah.
type of sizes. So, um, Alex, I'm curious, like, what would be your ideal solve to, when it gets to these smaller sizes?
Go back to the designer and complain.
That's fair.
What is um yeah, I don't know. See, like because that's kind of the question for me is like what what can I do? So like you could have it so that this stays the same width, and like you said, it's cover, so it takes up 100% of the height, and it kind of like
Hmm.
crops off some of the sides of the album. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think what else you could do. You could top align it, but I wouldn't love the amount of space on the bottom because like this. Let's see, where was it? This is really like the goal, right? Like that is the optimal
Yeah.
solution. I'm not totally sure on the immediate solve for this one, to be honest. Maybe have it like overlap more in the background and have like a faded black over it to kind of
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know. What?
So
Yeah.
I'm not picking on you, but I do find it interesting that your solutions are kind of keeping it in our current grid columns.
Ah, yeah. Good point.
Yes.
Good point. Also, I
So
feel picked
wouldn't
on. Chat. She's being mean to me.
it?
I'm being bullied on my own show. No. No, that's a great point.
um,
I'm thinking within the box, quite literally, right? Like some. So
yeah.
yeah, I didn't even think of breaking
Um,
outside of that size. So
and already what we've done here, I just another quick side point
mhm.
is, um, okay, so I have a history with like a very long history with Bootstrap, and like to accomplish what we've already done would have taken so many classes and
Yeah,
so much trial and error to get that flow to happen
yeah,
and be so annoying. So grid template columns, highly recommend learning that and trying that out. But so now, without container queries, we would have to do a little bit more effort
mm,
to resolve this problem. We would have to maybe even rethink how we're doing the HTML just to make it easier on ourselves to be able to like, what we're going to do is flip orientation. We're going to flip it so that the cover image is on the top and the contents below when
cool.
we get to these narrower widths. That's what we want to be able to accomplish, just to make a little better use of the space.
Makes sense.
Um, yeah. So, by the way, what does our time look like? I forget what time we go to.
So we're at 50 minutes right now. We go to 90 minutes, so we've got 40
All
minutes.
right, perfect. So you have plenty of time to dive into our container queries.
Yep.
So if that's what you came for, now is the time.
Sit down and buckle up. Here we go.
Yes. Um, all right. So how we're going to approach this is that, so for a container query to work, container queries are our kind of next evolution in responsive design. And this has kind of been, you've seen some articles maybe this past week on maybe even renaming responsive design and
Yeah.
some different ideas being thrown out as we're getting these new tools available
The
to us.
new
And
responsive
that's,
design and all
that's
that.
interesting,
Yeah.
but yeah. Um, like we're going to keep it within the frame set of like responsive design. I think that's currently most familiar.
That's perfect.
So in responsive design world, we would start to add media queries. Um, but downfall of media queries is that they're beholden to the viewport size. And in this case, want to actually, we're more worried about the individual list item size.
Got it.
We don't care really about the viewport. We happen to have a full width component right now, but that doesn't mean it always will be. So we want to be able to set us some styles where when the list item in particular is narrow, we can adjust that orientation of its contents. So to start off here, we have to actually define what elements are going to be a container. Because when we say container queries, they work pretty similar to media query. They're going to use this @container syntax,
Okay.
where we can define like min and max width and then some rules between. But we have to define what is the container that we're actually watching with that query. So just to start us off, for our, we're going to create a container out of the list item itself.
Cool.
So if you go into the list item, yep, and you can put these rules wherever you'd like, top or bottom. So when container queries first landed in Chrome Canary, for those of you that maybe looked at it a few weeks ago, maybe even looked at an article that I have on smashing, which it needs updated. The initial way that this was proposed was using a property called contain, which exists in some browsers. It's a property that can take multiple values, but there has been an update since then. And so I'm not going to bother talking about contain because now in Chrome Canary, we have 2 new properties and that are going to move us closer to what the likely final version of container queries is.
Cool.
Which that's another important point. This is completely in flux. So even what we look at today may change. So just to keep that in mind.
You'll come back and we'll update this, right?
Yeah.
We'll do the whole stream over again. Chat, you're coming back for this. You're saying the same stuff again. We're just gonna re-record it, okay? We all have a deal.
Yeah. So if you do happen to find my article, I'm working on the updates for it because I only just kind of discovered doing this demo that those updates were ready in Canary.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so anyway, for our list item, the new property that we have available that's going to be a dedicated property for defining containers. There's a shorthand. It didn't seem to be working, so for now we have 2 properties. First, we're going to use container-type. Oh, and sorry, not a so just as a regular property.
My fault.
So our goal right now is that we're defining that the list item itself is a container.
Okay, let me bring that back up to the list.
And so there's a few. Cool. Yeah, that might
make it a bit more clear here.
Place.
Cool.
Yep. So there's a few acceptable values. The one that we're interested in today is inline-size.
Size.
In other words, contain this element inline, which essentially equates to contain its width. We want to care about its width, and we want to. So this sets us up to be able to watch the width of the list item with our container query.
So this is
a little bit mind-bendy.
This is like the I totally forget the term for it, but instead of doing like margin top, you do like inline start. It's that like inline's horizontal and block is vertical. Correct. Cool.
Yes. And there is a corresponding block size. I'm not sure if it's quite landed as a prototype, but yes, it would. The intention would be to constrain or contain by height and be able to watch that. Yeah.
Very helpful.
So inline size is the main one, which again, if we think back to what we all are familiar with responsive design, width is in fact what we usually care about.
Right.
So that's going to be the first property we start with. And so now we are going to begin our first container query. So maybe just completely outside of all those existing rules, we can
just
set
like
that
at the bottom.
Yeah.
Cool.
So @container.
Great.
And
is that it, or do we pass it something? I'll wait for
correct.
you to.
Oh, of course, my
Dude,
dog's going to go off. Hopefully,
all
you can't
good.
hear her. I think
All
it's
good.
the male person.
She has
um,
opinions about container queries, clearly, so it's fine.
yes, yes. Containers being delivered at this moment.
Nice.
Um, and now we already discussed that the styles we have now are intended to be like the baseline foundational styles if container queries aren't available.
Cool.
So once container queries are available, I picture myself approaching them similar to like a mobile first idea, except for instead of mobile first, I'm going from smallest container upward. But because of how, again, we've set up the baseline, this first container we're going to set for our smaller size. We're going to use a max width in this
Okay.
particular case, just based on our context, what we're currently working on.
Cool.
And I'm going to set this to 50 CH.
All right.
So yeah, so a cool thing about container queries is right now, the available queryable properties are essentially like width, max width, etc. But they're going to expand to even be able to query things like custom property values or even things like background color.
Wow.
So these are going to get extremely cool. But for now, they're very familiar. Again, like comparable to media queries.
Right.
Just watching something different.
If you understand responsive design right now, it's not too
Yeah.
far off to kind of think of like each div, each element as its own window, and as that shrinks and scales, you can have properties that either are there or not. I don't
Yeah.
have better words than that right now, but yeah, either those styles are applied or they're not applied, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep. So now what we can do, or at least what we're going to try to do, is we set up our list item as a container. So I'm curious what your guess would be of how we could handle updating our orientation then.
Updating. All right. So I'm assuming since this works kind of like a media query, as long as we're specifying that list item again, we could do like food menu, like li, and then we can li. I guess we can do this in case we want to. No, I guess it only matters for the li, and then background color red. Like, would that change it as it got smaller? No, it doesn't seem to be.
Okay, so this is a fair impulse.
Okay.
This is a fair impulse. But we have hit a little bit of a, I called it a pitfall, just because I think a lot of folks are going to hit it exactly like we just did.
Okay.
Which is, we have created the list item as a container, but we can't actually alter the container itself. You can only alter items that are contained. So in order to resolve this, because we do want to watch the list item, we don't want to watch the whole list because that's going to watch the entire width, and that would not be correct either.
Right.
So the way to resolve this is we're going to have to add a nested element around the list item contents so that that element can watch the list element and adjust from that point.
Huh. I'm
so
really
this is
curious
why I gave you another set. Yep.
Yeah.
Another set of HTML.
Cool.
You can copy out that whole first section and swap to the second one.
Okay. So is there a phase 3 or is it just we're doing phase? Oh, yeah, there's phase 4.
3.
Whoa. Steph, you came prepared. I really appreciate it. Okay, so
you can either delete or just comment out the first block. We want to wipe that away.
Cool. Let's do that. Starting point. Awesome. Goodbye. You've served us well. And now phase 2. Is there a phase 3 or am I missing it? It looks like we jumped to phase 4.
There's a 3, but it won't change the HTML.
Okay, got it. Cool. It just, yeah. We jumped to phase 4. I'm like, oh no, I'm scrolling too fast. All right, cool.
Yep. Okay, don't worry about the effect on the right. Let's look at the HTML real quick. So what we've done is within each list item, we've added a div. And in this case, now we have given it a class just to make it a little more easily recognizable. So we've wrapped it with card. So we just need to go into our styles, and the one that we, our food menu li, just change the li to our card class. instead.
Okay, so here,
So yeah,
except for the container type, we want to keep that on the li, correct?
that's correct. Yep,
Okay,
good call.
so I can yank this off, dot card, and then do the li here, like that. Cool. All right, that seems to work with the styles and everything. I'm not sure why I'm opening JavaScript. And so if we do dot card with that, theoretically,
And let's see. Oh, it just needs extra scoping because we have it nested from SAS. So if
cool.
you just want to do food menu card,
Oh,
that should
right,
be
right.
inside of your container query.
Yeah. Food menu.
So
So dot food menu.
for the
Cool.
rule inside the container query.
Cool.
Yeah,
Just wanted to make sure I wasn't sure if it was
that tripped me up too when I was doing it. And I
might.
wonder if CodePen, you might have to trigger a save.
Let's do like so dot card. Should we do like li? And just try to get ultra specific. So let's see, real quick.
It should just, oh, I'm curious. After you set the experiment, did you restart Chrome Canary?
No, hold on one sec. Let me do
Okay,
that.
that might be it. Hopefully that's it.
Yeah, what? Container queries enabled. So relaunch, cool. All right, so pulling this over here, I think I was in regular Chrome. That might also do it. So here's
yep.
Canary. That will be better.
There
Whoa,
you
and that is
go.
red. That is red. Okay, cool. Let me log in real quick. Let me pull this off screen. Sorry about that. Glad we didn't go too
That's all
long
right.
down that rabbit hole without me realizing.
Well, hey, you accidentally just demonstrated progressive enhancement, right?
I
Our cards
did.
continue to work.
It still looked really good. I mean, it actually looked better than my styles that we added on top, so that's perfect. Of course. Give me 2 seconds because Canary doesn't have any of my login things, so now I'm like logged
yeah.
out. Oh, of course I am.
Well, you could show us Canary and then do the, well, we want to see those changes though too.
We
That's
want to
tricky.
build in Canary for sure. All right, so let's see what we've got here. Can we make this any bigger? Because I have to log. So I log into CodePen through GitHub, and to log into GitHub, I need two-factor auth. So it's just like things on top of things, where it's just like, oh boy. Give me 2 seconds to actually just handle this so that we can continue on. I'm going to switch over to two people only. Transitions. The delay, everyone. I'm a goof. So
It's all good.
GitHub.
Yeah, that'll get you. So if you missed the top of the stream, anyone, we can only do container queries within Chrome Canary, and you need to set that up under Chrome //flags. Search for container queries, and then you'll be able to view this demo when we push it out a little bit later today, and any other ones that use container queries, and of course experiment with them yourself. So.
Oh, GitHub and GitLab are different things, aren't they? Cool. There we go. Authorize CodePen. All right, great. And that's when you find out you weren't logged in through CodePen that whole time, were you? No, I think I was. Let me just make sure. Yeah, okay, we're good. I'm back, and let's switch over to desktop and two people. Stephanie, thank you so much for holding that down while I... Oh man, is everyone else sweating? No. It's all good.
No worries at all.
Cool. We have Darren in the chat. Some fantastic people. Yeah, width greater than 300 pixels will be out at the same time as container queries, right? Not sure.
Oh, the new syntax for defining both media queries and container queries. I mean, unknown if it's going to be the same time.
That's
but
cool.
Yep, being able to do like greater than, less than, and a few other ways of defining the parameters for these queries are
nice. I
are
haven't heard about that at all. Yeah. That's great. You have a closer ear to the ground than I do, Viola. And Andy, thank you for stopping through. Hopefully you get to catch it later. Cool. So we are set now. A bit better than we were. All right.
I know that they'll work.
Yes. Ah, and
Okay, so
yeah,
if you go
we
down,
see. Cool. There it is.
yep, so we've got kind of a tight breakpoint now, because we don't have that much difference between what we set as our minimum allowed width for our cards, which was 30 ch, and this current container query. But of course, we want to do a little bit different thing than set the background color.
Yeah. I hope
So
so. I hope this isn't the end.
yeah, maybe go ahead and take that one off.
Okay, cool.
It was good to validate. Oh, I just realized because it's my computer's not streaming your video to me very good quality. So anyway, I just noticed that you did scope it to the LI, and that is fine. One thing that's interesting is even though we can't style the containing element directly, um, we can use it as part of our selector. This is handy, as we'll see in a little bit, if we want to use pseudo selectors on that parent
Oh,
container.
that's cool.
So
Okay.
anyway, but we don't
real quick, Mike
yeah.
Peruvian Idol just subscribed for 3 months. Thank you so much, Mike. That is incredibly generous. Thanks so much. It's great to have you part of the community, part of the stream. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. It's fantastic. Cool. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm happy to take this road. I'm learning so much already. Feel free to do whatever.
All right. So if you recall, we talked quite a bit about how we set up our grid template areas so that we could change orientation super slick. Yep, exactly. So we're going to essentially within this container query redefine our grid template areas.
Cool.
So now we would like 3 rows, and it's just going to be cover, title, description.
Getting an error.
Now oh, interesting.
Might have a missing bracket or something. Bracket there, bracket there.
Oh, is it a colon instead of a semicolon at the end of that?
Oh, I just don't have any
Can't
colon there at all. There we go. That's what it is. Cool. That's better. Let's see.
Now, I think what's getting in our way is that we had previously set some auto columns.
Okay.
And so these rules are kind of competing right now.
Got it.
So in here, we can do grid auto columns, and we're going to use the value unset.
Nice.
Hopefully that resolves it for us. Otherwise, we miss something. I won't. You know what? I wonder if you do need your LI just because of our SAS scoping.
Might be,
I think
yeah. Might be the specificity. There we go.
There we go.
Cool.
Okay. So
that looks great. That's so cool.
Real quick, if you want to uncomment the auto columns, just so we can see the effect of that being problematic. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
So you can see that it was inheriting that.
Yeah, it was.
So we just need to unset it. And unset it is kind of, unset is a unique thing. It's going to either choose the initial value or the inherited value. It depends on what property it's being applied to. So
cool.
But yeah, like you were doing, you can shrink down a little bit more, and you can see that change between the 2 we currently have available.
Great. Awesome.
Now, in some cases, you might feel like the change point is a little abrupt, but that's just because we're faking it, right? We're doing this in CodeFed, and you're literally dragging that back and forth.
Yeah, if users are doing this, you have bigger problems.
Yeah. But what's interesting is if you are able to open like the full screen view so that we can use the device inspector.
Yeah, is it debug mode? Yeah. Cool. I have to save.
It's saved.
I don't know. My styles look pretty cool there. Let's see.
There you go. So if you want to change it just through like an iPad and an iPhone or whatever sizes you want to just like experiment with. Oh, like if you want to go back into your CodePen settings for the viewport meta tag, I think we missed that when we copied it.
Oh, got it. So settings. Where does that go in HTML?
Yeah, and just click their handy button there. That insert the most common.
I never noticed that.
There you go.
That's super cool. All right, nice. Let's refresh this.
There we go.
Nice. Good eye, Steph. Awesome.
So
That's one of those
on,
things where I haven't set that in so long that I would have
yeah.
been wondering, why isn't this working? Yeah, great call. Cool.
So, when we actually are at like a reasonable real world device size, like it's pretty good, or it's pretty good.
Yeah.
We can, we're going to do one more query just to improve it even a little bit more.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's a good foundational starting point. It's, this would again would be fine. Your project manager or designer would be probably pretty happy with this. But what you can say is, I have another trick and I can make it better.
Awesome.
um, and this is like why I advocate for modern CSS, right? Unless you know what's possible, you might be missing out on a solution that is even a little bit more ideal for your
Right.
scenario. So,
Makes sense.
oh, by the way, for this current, so for the card container query styles, the other thing we want to do when it's in that orientation is we want to rearrange the span position. So, yep. So inside there.
Inside here. So
Yep.
to span.
So on our span, we're going to do a place self of end.
Ah, right.
And we're going to flip our transform value. Oh. Yep. So we're going to do a translate of 25% and 50%.
Cool. That's awesome.
So that was partially to demonstrate like using those, place self things, but also just more practically, I think keeping that number closer to the content makes just a little more sense contextually.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just fun to watch stuff shift around as it changes. Like that's just exciting for me. So I'll use any excuse that you want for why we're moving stuff around, because I'm loving that.
Perfect.
Cool.
So lastly, we would like to just do something a little fancy, and I'm trying to find it in my version of the styles because I may have accidentally. Okay. So we have kind of that in between phase where maybe we could still like squeeze a little more room out of our grid, basically. And so for this, we want to be able to adjust the actual list items themselves. So if you recall, if we want to adjust the list items themselves, they need to have their own container, which naturally is the unordered list.
Right.
So if you want to go back up into the unordered list, we're going to create that as a container as well.
Interesting.
Pop quiz time. Well, not really.
I was going to copy and paste this. Is that the pop quiz?
That works.
Okay. Pop quiz is go back to the code that Stephanie wrote and paste it. So we're doing container type inline size again?
Yes.
Cool.
Now, one quick point here is that our container that we already wrote, our container query, if you recall, we're only able to query descendants of a container.
Right.
So without anything extra, those are still only going to the list item. They're going to their nearest contained ancestor is what's happening there.
Right.
So it will continue looking at the list item. It's not going to try to like skip levels. If the list item wasn't contained, then it would query up to the unordered list because that would be the nearest ancestor that has containment.
Okay.
It is a little strange.
Yeah,
it definitely
I might
took me
not
playing
fully
with it
get
to like
that.
fully. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's fine. I think this is something where it's going to have to be like a lot of like hands-on, like, oh, okay, this, right? Like it's gonna. Mm-hmm. But this is a fantastic introduction. I'm understanding way more than I did.
So you could test it real quick. You could just comment out the containment on the list item.
Okay.
And you could see that it's not going to work the same. So
okay,
you have to get all the way down to the essentially viewport size because of how the list items fill in the space for it to knock down.
Oh, so now it's looking at this as the container. Mm-hmm. So that, okay, so let me try to phrase this myself. So this is now only catching these styles if the UL, the unordered list, is less than the 50 characters, right?
Correct. Yep.
Where before it was each item.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm really confused about how it's going to act, or I'm curious how it's going to act now that we have two, because I feel like it should be firing all the time or something, or it should be, yeah. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Is it going to be either? If either of those are less than 50, those will trigger?
Yep. So that's why the nearest ancestor part is the key. So the
Okay.
styles we currently have are only going to the list item. Now you bring up a good point. So
Got
this
it.
is another change that would just happen within the last week-ish or so. Is that they did expand the spec so that we can name containers. And I'm
Oh.
personally very in favor of this change because exactly of the confusion you just experienced. I'm also imagining this in, like, for myself, like a design system context
Hmm.
where who the heck knows what container you end up with once you throw a bunch of components that have container queries onto a page,
That's a great point.
which could be desirable behavior. It really depends.
Right. We should be able to
So we
opt
can
in
go
or opt
ahead
out of
and,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
also that, which I think is really critical.
That's cool.
So if you actually go up to both of the rules where we're defining containment, we are currently using container type. We can also, for each of these, add a second property called container name. And
Oh,
again,
cool.
these are going to be a shorthand. It didn't seem to be working for me the other day, but this literally is changing day by day. So that shorthand may work. It may actually work, or it may work tomorrow, or whatever.
Cool.
Yep, so no quotes needed. So for our UL, let's just call that list. And then for the list item itself, let's call it list-item.
This makes sense to me.
Yep. We could have called it menu and menu item or whatever you'd like, but I kind of like keeping it generic, I think,
All good.
for this purpose. So how this changes things is then after that at container, in this case, we can define list-item to just be a little more explicit about.
So right here?
Between, yep.
Oh.
So we're not going to see a change. We're just making that relationship a little more explicit of what that container query is.
But we didn't break it, so that's
on.
good.
Yeah.
That's part of my test. Cool. That's awesome.
So now that we've defined the list container, let's use that one. So we'll do a second container query.
And welcome Tanner in the chat. Good to see you. And Cynthia's here. Fantastic. Welcome. Cool.
And for this one, we're going to do something that feels even more familiar with media queries. We're going to do both a min and a max width range here.
So min max?
So we'll set good guess. Maybe in the future we can do this.
Got
it. Min width of 80 ch.
Then is it a comma?
And then so second, just like a media query, like the word and.
Is that inside or outside?
It's weird to say that out loud.
Whoa.
Outside the parentheses, yeah.
I don't understand what Coil Twitchbot is, to be honest. It cheers. Thank you if you're a person, but I don't think so. So thanks. I don't know. Coil Twitchbot, what are you? Are you giving me money? I don't understand. Anyway, max width
of 110 ch, and then just the and should be the spelled out as the word.
Got it.
At least for now. I don't know if that's up for a change. So then within that container query, so because we've named it list, we're being explicit about we're querying the list. So we're querying the unordered list element. So now we can change properties of the individual list items.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is do an nth child rule off of our list items.
Okay. So is it li?
Yep. And then nth child. And we're going to do 3n plus 1.
Cool.
And trust me, I always have to keep playing with these before I hit the right combination in here too.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, just I'm always like, all right, is it plus? Is it? Yeah, so.
Let's apply the rule, and then we could maybe better see what this particular one's doing. So we're going to say grid-column,
Okay.
And this time we are going to go back to the confusing syntax, and I'm sorry, but it's the quickest way to do it. We're going to say span space 2.
Cool. And no apologies needed.
Yep, and we might have to find there we go, the right breakpoint there.
Steph. That's super cool.
And so now it changes even, in my view, a little more nicely across, and it changes a little bit more rapidly. But again, as we saw, when we actually are using kind of a real device, then it tends to make a little more sense in context.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's like,
See if we can bring it up on the iPad. And so yeah, this feels a lot more like the Apple Store or something, right? Like just featuring it, like breaking up the monotony
mm-hmm.
without having to, uh, yeah, like with how little code we had to write there compared to how
Yes,
you might do it otherwise without container queries. This is fantastic.
yes.
That's really cool.
Um, I know we're getting a little low on time. I will definitely share, the slightly more full demo. If we could swap to our last HTML set really quick, just to
Absolutely.
show, just really hammer home like the
The
power
potential.
and the point of
Yeah.
container queries.
I love it. Let's see it. All right. So phase 4. Yeah, that just seeing that was so cool. Okay. Any other changes that I need to make in here?
Let's see. Did it get commented out, the previous version?
Yes, it did. So, yep. Here's, oh, weird.
It did that to me
What's,
too. I wonder if you just trigger a save, if it'll resolve.
oh, yeah. Look at that. Yep. Phase 4. Cool. We are good. Should I refresh just in
It's still
case?
not showing correct. Oh, I know why it's not showing correctly.
Some
Haha, we have to add
CSS.
one little rule. So we're gonna
Cool.
do one little rule really, really quickly. You can do it clear at the bottom of your styles.
Okay.
Um, and we have a new element that's wrapping this our current menu. And it's called food menu sidebar. And we're gonna set it up as with a grid template really quickly, just so we can see how this applies. So grid template columns.
Cool.
And since we're almost out of time, let's just do 33% and 1 FR.
Okay.
And then, oh, we need display grid on that.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
I do it all the time.
Especially when I'm like in like following directions mode, like my some of my critical thinking turns off, so I need to be better about that. Cool.
Okay, so we're just hammering home that we didn't make any other changes, and our component fits in the sidebar space because it is using container
Ah,
queries.
got it. That's such a good point.
So
Yeah,
we could,
that's
massage this and make the H2 a little smaller and adjust the padding, but the
right.
root component, we needed 0 changes.
Yeah, and now you can pick up that component and, like you said, kind of use it across a design system and kind of know that wherever you toss it in, you don't have to reach into it too much. It's kind of self-contained, and is able
Yep.
to adjust and adapt to whatever you use it in. That's really cool. That's fantastic. This has been great, Steph. This has been really, really cool. Um, yeah, so Tanner in the chat is saying container queries seem really neat. Haven't tried them out yet. You are not alone. This is my first time. You have to have Chrome Canary
Mm-hmm.
for now. Hopefully not forever. That would be not optimal because it's not a very popular browser. And then going to Chrome /flags, you search for container queries and make sure that that's enabled. And then turn on everything else too. Just see what happens to your computer. Uh, see if it lights on fire with everything else turned on. We'll see. Do Chrome a little bit of a Q&A, right? See if some of this stuff works. No, but yeah, that's so cool.
Alex, I just fed you a few links
Discord?
to drop in if you wouldn't mind. If
Not
Yeah,
at
because if you
all.
are interested, folks, in learning more about container queries, the draft spec just got released this week. Not everything that's in there is quite in the Chrome Canary, but the upgraded properties we looked at today, container type and container name, are there. You can also see that are beginning to spec out actual container query units, which will be amazing. Um, and then also a link there, in case you weren't aware, because I wasn't a few months ago, the CSS working group, yeah, they are doing all their stuff on GitHub. And so it is out in the open. You can track it. This is specifically the project board for container queries. So you can see
That's so
what is
cool.
currently being worked on and what's been proposed and accepted. And you can even comment in here and add your own, um, feedback about it. So, which is
That's
pretty
great.
cool.
And then you
And then the
pasted a
last one,
meetup.
yeah, this is happening tomorrow. So Miriam Suzanne is the proposal author of container queries. So um, if you want to know even more, that is coming up right away tomorrow. Definitely check that out.
That's great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all this information. My goodness, Steph, this has been really fantastic. Do you have anything else that you want to share, promote, plug, shout out? You want to say hi to parents or anything?
I did learn recently my dad has been watching a few of my streams, which is sweet. But
That is not only very sweet and very cool, but impressive that your parents are technologically. If I were to tell my mom that I'm doing this, she would just it'd be like, "That's wow, that's nice. I don't know what that is. Is it on Lifetime? Is it on Hallmark? Is it a Hallmark movie? Because that's what I watch. I love you, mom. If you
maybe
somehow
in 20
watch
years,
this,
that'll be, yeah.
yeah, I love you. But you watch a lot of Hallmark, yeah.
Yeah. I guess my last thing is, if you are interested, I'm doing a workshop with Smashing Conferences, which is happening in 2 weeks from tomorrow. So there's still a tiny, tiny bit of time left to sign up. That is all about CSS. So a couple of things we looked at today. We'll get even more into grid, custom properties. That second one there, yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
And there's a ton of information here, including the full agenda. So love to see some folks there. And yeah, we already talked about my other things at the top of the stream. So definitely find me on Twitter, and I share a lot of things there. And have a
Yeah, I'm
newsletter for the
super
rest of
happy
it.
happy to plug it though. I'm gonna drop your
Yeah, this is the
URL
master place
in,
for my links.
and I appreciate it because honestly, if I had to, if you didn't have that one place that branched me out, so I would forget about some of them just because not because they're forgettable, but because there's you create a lot. It's fantastic, and I just love how much you do for the community. So yeah, just
Yeah,
fantastic.
thanks.
I and kids like blows my mind, Steph. You're fantastic, and that was just such a great walkthrough with container queries. Awesome solution. Like so much about it. This is the one that doesn't have container queries actually, but because it's the old one. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Chat, thank you. And Cynthia, I did not mean any offense at grandmas. My mom was wonderful, love her to death. You're a grandma and a techie. That's awesome. I love having you here, Cynthia. Thanks so much for being here. Tanner, thank you for being here. Aaron, everyone in chat, thank you so much for being here. Let's keep talking. Let's keep hanging out. Down at the bottom, there's frontend.horror/chat. We have a Discord now. It's actually where Steph and I are having this chat. We're actually talking through Discord. So go join. I will see you there. We're talking about front end development, creative coding, code pens, all this kind of stuff. Share your code pens. I want to see the stuff that you're working on, the stuff that you care about, what you're interested in, who you want to see on the stream. Tell me in Discord, and come up with fun ideas like the heavy metal burger joint, because this came from Andy, who was in chat earlier and who is on next week. So make sure you're following here, just like Inner Self just did. Thank you, Inner Self. Yeah, definitely drop a follow and join us on Discord. I will see you there. Steph, thanks again. We are ending like beautifully on time, I have to say. An hour 29 is what we're coming up on. So you planned this like to perfection. Just want to say
I've
well
been
done.
practicing.
Love it.
I
Thanks
got to do a
again.
tight 2 hours for my workshop. So
Nice. Yes. So thank you so much. And yeah, people are saying it was great. So thanks again, Steph. Take care. Actually,
Thank you.
I always forget this, and I always do it after I say goodbye. I'm gonna see if we have anyone else who is streaming that we can go raid, because I like raiding friends. Is Colby streaming? No, I don't see anyone streaming. Chael is streaming. So let's go build circuits with Steam. Hang in here. Raid Chael. CHAEL codes. Let's try to do that. Sorry about the awkwardness, but we're going to do it. Use raid shell codes. Great. We have people lining up. Yeah, we're going to raid. Chael does some great streaming and building circuits with Steam. I'm really excited. Thank you so much. Take care. See you next week.
See ya.